and welcome to another free Friday Tidbit. So today I wanted to circle back again to a concept that we talked about before called dysmaturity. And that has to do with our social and emotional development in particular, although our skill levels in a number of different areas don't all keep develop at the same pace, right? Which is where the dys comes in. In particular, with social and emotional maturity, there is often a huge lag between where someone's social and emotional development is and where their chronological or their body age is. And unfortunately, our society is very, we tend to divide people up by their chronological age with the expectation that everyone in that group is going to be able to perform at similar levels. And what we find with kids who have been affected by FASD or a number of other things also, that simply isn't the case. And we refer to that as dysmaturity. Again, as I said, and when we talked about this before, it's not that our child is being immature, right, where they developmentally are at the right level, but for whatever reason they're choosing to act younger than their years, but they can snap to and fly right at the as soon as they're chastised or whatever the case may be. But with dysmaturity, they are functioning at their best level, but their best level is not as mature as their chronological years. And so this creates quite a lot of problems on the playground or in the classroom. Think of how long we would expect a 2-year-old to be able to sit still and sit quietly. That's very different from a 5-year-old, right? So if your child starting kindergarten can only pay attention and focus and sit still as long as the average 2-year-old, that child's going to really, really struggle in kindergarten, right? And is going to be very disruptive and distractive and keep everybody else dysregulated. So, several years later, if a child is in 5th or 6th grade, it is expected that child would be able to sit still and sit quietly and to focus for much more extensive periods of time, right? They usually do away with recess by that time. So it's a time where there's an expectation for a lot of self-discipline and being able to filter a lot of things out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But with our kids with dysmaturity, they may emotionally or socially only be 5 or 6. And again, our expectations for a kindergartner or 1st grader are very different than they are for a 5th or 6th grader, right? So there's a lot of challenges with that. And then, so just keep that in mind. And always, as I talked about dysmaturity before, always ask yourself, my child functions at doing whatever the task is about as well as the average blank-year-old. And then put your strategies in place equivalent to how you would help a child of that developmental age. Because just like in the past, when we've talked about physical safety versus felt safety, we need to really address the felt safety piece. Same thing with the maturity levels. We need to be supporting a child where they are developmentally if we're going to help them be successful in any way, if we're going to encourage them to grow rather than see them spiral down get stuck in the muck and the mire of putting themselves down and getting teased for not being able to do anything right, that kind of thing. We don't want our kids to feel like they're failures. We want to give them the supports that they need in order to grow and to thrive. So that is your Free Friday tidbit for helping your neurodiverse child navigate back to school. Tune in next Friday for another Free Friday tidbit. And don't forget to circle back on Monday for another podcast episode on living with FASD.